always the last 2 minutes. It seems like it takes forever.
It's really high.
Where's this high?
But it's fine.
It can go down.
It's all right.
Okay.
I'll figure it out next time.
This one's lower, I think. Maybe.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
All right.
If I could fix it, I was going to. But...
That might be shared, Counselor Pacero's chair. It's just a
Oh,
little.
she's a tall lady.
I was telling, they took all the chairs down and did them around the meeting, and when they put them back, it's out of this. I need to label. It's 7.
All right. Call this session of the Abandoned Planning Commission in order at 7 o'clock on July 24th, 2025. We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Orsi,
Here.
Vice Chair Jakowski,
Here.
Chair Starbuck,
Here.
Commissioner Norman,
Here.
Commissioner Pressler,
Here.
Commissioner Frey.
Here.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
All right, motion or consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve?
We approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Public comment. Comments from the public on any item not on the agenda, limited to 5 minutes each. To comment in person, please sign in and return the form to the clerk. If participating via Zoom, raise your hand at the beginning of the public comment period. Public comments and information provided during the meeting will be collected and retained by the city as a public record per Oregon Revised Statutes, sections 192.005 to 192.170 and 357.805 to 357.895, with some exceptions which aren't listed here. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public hearing. Public hearing items are required to be duly noticed and subject to public comment. Do I need to announce this?
If you'd like, you can defer to me and
Well, then I'll defer it to you.
thank you, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Staff's before you this evening to present item 4.1, which is the 2025 City Abandoned Transportation System Plan Update. This item has been under development in collaboration with ODOT and the team's consultant Parametrics since 2023. The item has also been presented before the commission on numerous occasions. For an overview of the draft TSP that is before you this evening, I will defer at this time to Emily with Parametrics. Emily?
Should I open the hearing? This is a public hearing?
Yes, this will be a presentation. And once staff concludes its comments and presentation, you could then.
Have a public hearing?
Yes, correct.
All right, okay, go ahead.
Emily?
Thank you, Tori, and thanks everyone for joining. We're really looking forward to moving this project forward. So I will just launch right into my presentation. I'm Emily Minister Myers. I'm a transportation planner with Parametrics and have been involved in working on the TSP project since the beginning. see if I can share my screen. And Tori, can you confirm that the PowerPoint is up on the screen for everyone?
Yes, it is.
Okay, excellent. Great. So first, we're going to just give a brief review of the context of the TSP. So what the TSP is, what it's going to do. We'll talk through the engagement that we've conducted to date throughout the project duration. We'll talk through the draft transportation system plan, and then we will talk about next steps. So what is a TSP? We've talked about this all before, but the TSP is a 20-year plan that will address Bandon's transportation needs now and in the future. So the TSP has projects, programs, policies, standards, and it updates Bandon's pretty outdated 2000 TSP. The purpose of the TSP update is to develop a TSP that complies with transportation planning rules and Oregon state standards. So if it is adopted by City Council and acknowledged by DLCD, it'll be acknowledged to meet state requirements. Then upon adoption, TSP projects will become eligible for state and federal funding programs. So just to summarize some of our community engagement, our first online open house was in 2023. We asked people for feedback on some of Bandon's issues and needs. We got a wide variety of responses, so anything from desire for new roadway connections, especially east-west connections, better walking and biking facilities, and a lot of the streets that came up often were Seabird, Beach Loop, and US 101, but also just bike routes and walking routes throughout the city. We heard a lot about desire for expanded transportation options, so potentially bringing back the shuttle or trolley. And also people brought up a concern around the school area and traffic during the drop-off and pickup times. Our next open house was in person. This was in April 2024, and we talked through some of the draft improvements to include in the TSP. We got a lot of responses in person and also through our online survey, and a lot of folks expressed support for the pedestrian, bike, and local street system improvements. So some of our comments I've put up here. People wanted to emphasize that Bandon's aging population means there's a lot of people walking and dog walking. People are interested in improving bike and pedestrian trails, but then there was some trepidation around new roadway projects. So from that outreach, we realized that we needed to do some additional outreach on US 101 specifically. A lot of the feedback that we heard in April 2024 was around some concerns with the proposed project in US 101. So we worked with ODOT to have some additional outreach to talk through some of these alternatives. We received 50 responses for our online survey. And again, we had our in-person open house as well. So we talked with a lot of people during that event. I think there were 75 people there. So it was really well attended, which was great. And for US 101, about 48% supported either lane reconfiguration A or B. So that would be alternative 2 or alternative 3. And about 44% did not support any of the US 101 options. However, a no-build option wasn't presented as a project alternative because leaving US 101 as is wouldn't meet the minimum state requirements for US 101, with the Oregon Bike Bill stating that bike facilities must be installed on the roadway. So for alternative 3 specifically, asking about how people felt, there was kind of a close split with some respondents being unsure and actually a decent amount of support for the lane reconfiguration. But we kind of, from looking at the comments, interpreted these results as people being unsure of the effects because it's a little more nuanced than the classic road diet. So we talked through developing a pilot project that would help us understand the impacts of potentially reconfiguring US 101. So our current online open house, which just closed today, we only received 12 responses. Again, it was kind of a mixed response with thinking if the US 101 projects are on the right track. So yes was 4, unsure was 2, and no was 6. So we're hoping that tonight with some of our discussions that Tori and ODOT will talk through, we'll kind of bring some folks along with the US 101 projects. But the pedestrian, bicycle, and local street system projects were reflected relatively positively. So talking through the TSP projects, this will be mostly review for those who've been to our presentations in the past. And just a note that Tori and ODOT will talk through the addendum after this presentation that will kind of dive deeper into what they're thinking for alternative 3 moving forward. So alternative 3, which is the recommended project for US 101 in the draft TSP, from Delaware Ave to 13th, we would be removing 1 northbound travel lane and retaining 2 southbound travel lanes. From June to Delaware, it's a little bit of a narrower roadway, so we would be removing 1 lane in each direction. Some of the benefits of this alternative is that it's lower cost, wouldn't require many impacts to property or buildings, and it would be primarily just a striping project, so it would keep costs relatively low. It would add space for bikes on US 101 where there are no bike lanes currently. By adding these bike lanes, there would be more separation between people driving on US 101 and people walking on the sidewalk. It also can help reduce speeding. And importantly, it meets minimum state standards. So it aligns with state standards to provide bike routes on state highways. So as a result of this, it would comply with the transportation planning rule and support all modes of transportation. During our traffic analysis, we looked at the potential effects of the lane reconfiguration, and it showed some slight increases in vehicle queues and maybe potentially cut through traffic. However, the impacts to traffic operations wouldn't be super significant, and it would still meet standards. Also, as we'll discuss after this presentation, there's the potential to test this out with a pilot project before investing in some more permanent capital-intensive improvements. So again, just to review, the top image shows what June Ave to Delaware Ave looks like now, with 2 lanes in each direction, whereas for alternative 3 in this kind of constrained roadway section, it would be 1 lane in each direction with 6-foot bike lanes. And for Delaware Ave to 13th, currently there's 2 lanes in each direction with a center turn lane. Alternative 3 would remove 1 turn lane northbound and retain the 2 southbound lanes. And just some imagery to kind of bring this to life. So this is June Avenue to Delaware and Delaware to 13th. And this is just kind of our summary of all of the improvements recommended for US 101. So the orange line shows where these lane reconfigurations are proposed. And then we've got some intersection improvements as well as enhanced crossings. So for citywide transportation recommendations, lots of projects. I think Tori counted them and there's about 70, but some project highlights that we've received a lot of positive feedback on are improvements to Beach Loop Drive. So adding some separated walking and biking facilities. Seabird Drive, we're actually kicking off our traffic calming project now. So in August, there'll be an event for that. So a lot of good feedback so far. Adding greenways on some lower stress local streets, which is a great way to improve biking and walking routes for lower cost. Improved crossings near the schools, hearing a lot of feedback about wanting kids to get around safer, and developer supported improvements to roadways. So this is all, again, familiar project map for all of you at this point, but here's our bicycle system. Again, these projects haven't changed much since we've last met, but please let me know if there's any questions at the end. For Bandon's roadway system, for lack of connections through the donut hole, which leads to some backup traffic on Beach Loop and Seabird Drive. We heard a lot about needing more east-west roadways. So new street connections proposed in the TSP would make it easier to get around and serve some planned and future development occurring. And here's that familiar map. The only thing to note is project R6 originally just ended at Carter, and now it's extending to Seabird Drive. So that's the only change I think that is there since the last time that we talked through these projects. Parking policy. So focus area being the busy areas in Old Town and along Beach Loop Drive. Some of our projects include letting the public know that there are existing parking lots that they can utilize, potentially implementing time constraints or pricing that would probably be further down the line. Investing in a shuttle, especially during events, and adding new parking lots for larger vehicles. Also, the know before you go travel information would really help, especially in the busier times of year, to let people know that there are other options. And for public transportation, again, hearing a lot about hopefully partnering with a transit agency in the future to potentially bring back the circulator shuttle or trolley, improving bike and pedestrian access to the intercity bus stop, and improving signage and amenities at the existing bus stop. So comparing the 2025 TSP to the 2000 TSP, we took a look at if the TSP is adopted, which projects would be eligible for grant funding compared to the 2000 TSP. So in the old TSP, they showed actually some new roadway connections through the donut hole, but not a specific project identified in that version of the TSP. The 2025 TSP, we have new roadway connections through the donut hole, and then also some additional connections to Beach Loop Drive and to Seabird Drive. And these would be roughly 1.8 million to 7 million per project, but these would be eligible, some of them would be eligible for grant funding or partnerships or development supported. The 2000 TSP shows a bike plan map, but it does not actually define specific projects, whereas the 2025 TSP includes, of course, the restriping of US 101 to remove one travel lane and add bike lanes. We'll talk again a little bit about that more after this presentation. 2000 TSP does not identify parking and demand management strategies, whereas this TSP does. And the same thing goes for public transportation improvements. Again, this is kind of a similar theme where in the 2000 TSP, there aren't any shared use paths or pedestrian and bike projects, whereas the 2025 TSP does. And the cost of those projects is around 14 million. Again, a lot of these projects would be eligible for state and federal funding. Improved pedestrian crossings in the 2025 TSP would be about 3.7 million. And that was highlighted as a priority for a lot of folks in our outreach events. The pedestrian plan map in the 2000 TSP, again, doesn't explicitly define projects, whereas the 2025 TSP has sidewalk infill and upgrades on some important streets that we've heard from folks don't currently feel safe to walk on. And those projects are about 4.5 million. The bike plan, again, showing a network of bike routes, but no associated projects. And the neighborhood greenways on local streets and bike lanes on US 101 and Rosa Road kind of bring that bike plan to life and actually have explicit projects with costs associated with it. So our bike projects hover around 4.3 million. So altogether, the TSP projects are about 57.3 million. And some of these are developer funded, so partnering with development to make sure that some of these projects go into place with new projects. There's the potential for ODOT partnerships on state facilities. And then there's local and grant funded projects, which are about 16.2 million. Approximately 7 million is considered financially feasible. So taking a look at Bandon's historical spending and the existing revenue options. But adopting the TSP would allow for approximately $26 million in projects to be eligible for grant funding or for state partnership support. I know I just talked a lot, but for our next steps, we've got the city council hearing on September 2nd at 7 p.m. After that, we will make any necessary revisions to the draft TSP, and then that goes forth for adoption. So that's what's coming up. Thank you all so much. And Tori, do you want to have some Q&A now, or would you like to start discussing the addendum?
I would like to touch on the addendum.
Okay.
And then we could open up for questions.
Okay, great. I will stop sharing.
Oh, thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
As the commission's aware, this afternoon, staff circulated an addendum to the staff report providing supplemental information. This addendum was developed in response to concerns and questions that we received following the dissemination of the staff report. So with that, we do have copies for those in the audience who have yet to see the addendum. We also have made copies available for viewing for those at home via the city's website. The addendum contains 3 attachments. The first attachment, attachment 1, is a draft intergovernmental agreement between the city and ODOT. This agreement was prepared in response to concerns that the adoption of the TSP as a planning document could be construed as blanket approval authority for ODOT to reconfigure Highway 101 as defined in Alternative 3. This agreement was developed in collaboration with ODOT and with their support. The agreement stipulates that the adoption of the TSP is for planning purposes only and does not authorize the reconfiguration of Highway 101 without separate city council approval at a duly noticed public hearing at a future date and time. The agreement also establishes that the city retains policy discretion regarding any permanent reconfiguration of Highway 101. This agreement was developed this week and presented to ODOT in draft form. Staff felt it was pertinent to share this information with the commission so that you're fully informed and can make an informed decision and recommendation to the city council. With this document being in draft form, it's pending further review by ODOT and the Oregon Department of Justice. However, the general terms and conditions in the agreement are expected to remain substantially unchanged. Attachment number 2 is an informational memorandum to the Planning Commission on the requirements for grant eligibility. This memorandum was prepared in response to claims regarding the need for the city to adopt the 2025 TSP update in order to be eligible for potential grant funding. It outlines requirements under Oregon's Transportation Planning Rule, or OAR 660-012. To be eligible for state and federal transportation grant funding, the TSP must be adopted by the city council and incorporated into the city's comprehensive plan and acknowledged by DLCD. In the end, the city would benefit from adopting the 2025 TSP update, as doing so would increase the city's chances of receiving competitive grant funding project implementation. Attachment 3 is a project comparison. There was a slide in the presentation that Emily provided that highlighted this. The comparison is essentially a summary that was intended to identify transportation projects that have been added and that are reflected in the 2025 TSP update. These transportation projects were not included in the 2000 TSP. the 2025 update presents a more comprehensive list of multimodal transportation projects and better aligns with state planning goals and grant funding criteria. With that said, city staff is recommending that the planning commission review the information presented as well as the addendum, solicit public comments, and in the end, recommend adoption of the 2025 TSP to the city council for inclusion into the city's comprehensive plan as submitted and as by reference. This evening, we do have representatives from ODOT in attendance. We have Chris Hunter, who's the area manager with ODOT, Mike Baker, planning manager with ODOT, and the project manager, Tom Rivera, who's a senior transportation planner. With that said, that concludes my presentation, and the collective team is available for any questions. Thank you.
So do you need to open this hearing?
Open the hearing now.
You can provide discussion amongst you all, close the presentation, open it up for public hearing, allow public comments, and then provide further commentary.
All right, let's do that. Go ahead.
So, is it or is it not an option to do nothing in the reconfiguration of 101?
If, and we do have ODOT representatives who could probably fill this question better. If, and I think the question was, is the city able not to do any of the recommended improvements with regards to the reconfiguration of Highway 101?
Yes.
And I think that question would probably better serve answered by ODOT. But with that said, the main objective of the TSP is to comply with applicable state laws with regards to complete streets, providing multimodal transportation options, including bicycle paths, sidewalks, and of course, vehicle transportation. But with that, if Chris or Mike, would you care to answer or elaborate?
I'm Mike Baker, with the Oregon Department of Transportation, 3500 Northwest Stewart Parkway in Roseburg. Yeah, I think Tori is exactly correct. So no build really is not an option. We have done analysis and it does appear that it's feasible from that engineering analysis to install bike lanes on the facility in a minimal impact type situation at minimal cost. And again, there's kind of a difference between what we plan for and when we implement it too. This is a 20-year plan, so implementation isn't anticipated to occur for maybe another decade.
If I could also elaborate that the TSP is a planning document, and as indicated by Mike, it's a 20-year plan. Many of the projects identified in the 2000 plan have yet to be implemented, and the same will go with the 2025 plan. However, in an effort to make ourselves better positioned to potentially obtain grant funding to help fund the implementation of these transportation projects, 72, I think in total, the need to have a TSP that's deemed to be acceptable and in compliance with applicable state law is imperative.
And so that requires a reconfiguration of 101 then.
Yes, we have analyzed the highway and it appears that we could do that. Now, there are a number of benefits to that as well, because, you know, you have a highway that people, would not want to travel on. We have a population that is getting older, and so you have people in mobility scooters, you have the e-bikes, you have a number of different things that people are using. But I think you also have some benefits in that section, some of those sections that have no center turn lane. Now you would have a turn lane that would become available. So for example, at Fillmore, there's not even there's no dedicated left turn lane there. So that would provide even some safety for people to get out of the way without people, running into the back of them. So Yeah, number of benefits there.
I would also like to clarify that the TSP, again, is a planning policy document. It doesn't authorize implementation. Each of the 72 projects that are identified would require separate independent city council approval. And so there would not be the ability for any reconfiguration along Highway 101 solely based on the approval of the TSP. Right?
Correct.
And the other issues that you need to take into consideration is that to award contracts, to allocate any required funding matches, that is all subject to city council approval at public hearings. But with that said, the TSP is very important as a policy document to illustrate to the state that we have done our due diligence, we have planned for the future, and have prepared a plan that's in conformance with state guidelines. With that said, we are not obligated to implement any of these projects.
So Mike, is it correct to say, Bill Frey here on the end, hi, is it correct to say regardless of which alternative may be recommended in the TSP, that it might be a decade plus or minus before any of those alternatives are implemented, including the recommended alternative 3
Yes, for 101.
for 101?
Yeah,
Yes.
so what we're doing, why we're saying a decade is we're proposing, or just estimating that approximately in 10 years, we'll have a need to repave 101 through the city of Bandon. And so the thought was, well, prior to that, we would do this in some type of a temporary, a test manner and restripe the highway, to a new configuration and really see how it worked. But to what we've proposed is inputting this not only in the TSP, but also an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Bandon, that before we even took that step, we would approach the city council and somewhere in that time frame and just share with them our traffic analysis. Obviously, we'll probably do some updates on the analysis to make sure it still works. We're not going to rely on a plan that was just 10 years old, or the analysis
Right.
then. And we would ask their approval to go ahead and proceed with that temporary restriping. We would leave that in place for at least a year initially, and then we would evaluate that. So we'd take a look at what worked. Are there other modifications maybe that need to be made? Maybe there's other signal timing changes, or other things that need to happen. Maybe there's striping instead of 2 lanes south, it really needs to be 2 lanes north and 1 lane south. Or maybe after all of that and hearing the public input and seeing the data analysis from that, maybe the city council says, you know what, we're just too concerned. We'd rather have it go back to the way it currently is. And so they're going to have that option of whether to, when we come through with the paving project, whether to restripe it the way it is now, or to make that striping permanent with maybe any modifications during that paving project. So we take that back and design that project accordingly to what the city council desired, and then build that project.
So if alternative 3 is the recommendation and approved by the council, I just want to make sure I understand you. Are you saying that that particular restriping as a pilot project would not occur for approximately 1 decade? Or are you saying that could be implemented before the repaving, the general repaving of Highway 101?
It can happen outside of the paving project. We're just proposing that it happen with the paving project. That's the least expensive way to do that. Otherwise, there's some additional cost really with, removing and, wouldn't, I don't know what they do. What do they water? You got to remove it. You leave ghost marks basically on the pavement, and we try not to do that. So it's cleaner if you can just kind of pave right over it and have nice clean striping set back down. In addition, probably the temporary striping is done in paint, I would imagine, where we would come back later on with some probably more durable type painting or striping. Things with the glass beads, a little shinier, and the fog and a little brighter.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to add that the agreement that we are proposing that we enter into with ODOT further stipulates that nothing can be done on Highway 101 without prior council approval. So even though ODOT may plan it to be implemented on a temporary pilot basis in 8 years, If the council at that time is not interested in implementing it, it would be up to the city council to make that determination. And let's say they wanted it to be implemented, there was support for it in 15 years. That would only be implemented if it were to obtain city council approval and in the agreement by resolution or majority vote of the council at a public hearing.
Correct. Yeah, so the city council will have multiple opportunities to weigh in and make a decision on where they would like that to go. But in the meantime, what we've done is we've created a planning document that meets the state requirements and can be acknowledged by DLCD and puts the city's projects, all of them, in a state that can apply for grant funding.
But if alternative 3 was replaced with alternative 1, it would still meet standards. Is that correct or not?
So alternative 1 is the widening
Widening of
of
the street.
101 to accomplish that. So, you're probably talking another 20 feet or so, or 20, 30 feet of property. Yes. Does that meet it? Yes, but there are other implications. So, we're currently even working with people that are looking at building on properties in the city abandoned. So immediately that begins to take some property and almost eliminate some of the possibility for them to actually locate here because the property now doesn't have the depth that it would be needed. Or should something catastrophic happen, fire or something like that, they may not be able to be rebuilt because there may not be enough land to do that. So there are ramifications to doing that, and not to mention an extreme cost and impacts to even existing buildings if you were to come in and take that.
Sure.
So that's why we went with alternative 3. It's something that we can do within the existing road prism.
Also, as a planning document, it's not etched in stone. A planning document can always be amended and revised.
Correct.
Who's to say within the next 5 years, there's a new concept that is better than any of the alternatives presented? We could then initiate an amendment to the TSP to incorporate that as the preferred alternative. And you can't beholden a future council to any decision. So with that, there's tons of flexibility moving forward with regards to considering a revision to the alternative 3 that's been presented tonight. But I just want to emphasize that nothing within Highway 101 would be implemented without prior city council approval at a public meeting.
Any other comments?
I,
I have a few.
go ahead, you go ahead.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
So, it's been emphasized sort of repeatedly comparing 2025 TSP to the 2000 TSP. Tori, do you have any idea what percentage of the 2000 TSP was actually ever implemented?
That I do not. But if you'd like, staff could do some additional research and perhaps provide an informational memorandum to the Planning Commission on that specific issue. But with that said, a good majority of the projects identified in the 2000 TSP were not implemented due to lack of funding.
Right.
And as you know, the city of Bandon struggles with discretionary funding. So all these great projects, of the 72 that are presented, I think the community supports 71 of those, right? With the idea that the one that they have issues with is not something that will be implemented by way of the adoption of the TSP. And that will be further stipulated in a legal agreement to that effect.
Makes sense.
And Tori, I'd love to jump in really quick here and just say that having these really discrete projects laid out in the 2025 TSP allows for forward movement more so than some of the just maps that are presented in the 2000 TSP. For example, the Beach Loop Drive project recently won an Oregon Community Pass grant, and then we're working on refining the Seabird Drive traffic calming. So this really does kind of create some momentum for actually bringing projects forward instead of having a 25-year-old TSP.
Right.
And with the 2000 TSP, there's been substantial amendments to the state guidelines. So the 2000 TSP is no longer in conformance with the state's transportation goals and objectives.
Right.
That's why it's very important that whatever we decide is deemed to be in compliance with those regulations and guidelines. The grants aren't guaranteed, they're highly competitive. So the cities that could present an application that conveys that they have satisfied these requirements, have a adopted TSP that's been deemed by the state to be in conformance with its guidelines, are those that are positioned higher in the priority to receive grant funding. If you go in there with a 2000 TSP, you could expect that Bannon would be at the lower end of that priority. And it'd be very difficult for us to obtain grant funding for the projects we have.
Right.
So would this TSP be more amendable to any future state changes in guidelines?
Yes, I think there's a requirement to routinely review the TSP to ensure its conformance with the current state guidelines. So oftentimes, it's considered to be an element of the comprehensive plan. And good practice would be to review that on a regular basis to ensure conformity. And they may have some proposed revisions in the future that may warrant revision to the TSP that then are reflected in the comprehensive plan. So again, it's a planning, it's a working document, it's fluid, it's not etch in stone, it's not an ordinance. It's a conceptual plan for the future transportation needs of Bandon.
All right.
Can I just ask a quick question about your project highlights? The improved crossings near the schools. I know you put some flashing lights. Are you talking about 10th and 11th Street themselves?
Let me look, because I don't remember off the top of my head.
Because there are people who, like kids cross from the elementary school to like the youth center, and there is a crosswalk, but unfortunately, a lot of drivers just blow right through it.
Yes, there are 2 new crosswalks on 11th, and then improvements to existing crosswalks just north of the school. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 new crosswalks, and then upgrading one of the existing crosswalks.
Does that include signage? Remind?
It can, just to note, the TSP projects are kind of higher level suggestions for adding new crosswalks and improving ones. When those projects actually move forward, they'll be kind of more defined exactly what's going into each of those crossings.
Even though it's state law, there are a lot of people that just don't, unfortunately, drivers that don't do the right thing. I've
Mhm.
seen it a number of times.
Yeah.
We can always, there are always opportunities to do that at any time, but of course, when we repave the road, we'll be looking at all of that as well.
Right.
Of those pedestrian crossings, and it's another opportunity to actually implement that.
Also, the crossings near the schools are ones that would be particularly eligible for grant funding. So Safe Routes to School funding is a really great opportunity to fund some of those crossing improvements that would be eligible if the TSP is adopted.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question starting on page 35 of the plan. You list all the projects and you have time frame, kind of near, long, medium, which I assume are prioritizations. Who came up with those? I mean, how did you arrive at what are the near project, the more priority projects versus,
Yeah.
I know 101 is like listed medium.
Yeah, so it was kind of a balance of what we heard from public engagement, what we saw in our analysis of, traffic and crash history, kind of the data end, as well as just discussions with the city before we kind of took a look at those. Also weighing in costs. So some of these projects are great projects, but they're not considered near priority because they are just very expensive. So it'd be difficult to implement them in the near term.
I'd also like to add that since this is a draft document, if the commission wanted to recommend reprioritizing Highway 101, that is something that if the commission, by way of a consensus, a majority decision, could recommend that revision in the final document to be presented to the city council.
I think the definition of them is near is typical, Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, but near is typically the first 5 years. And then
Yes.
medium ones are the next 5 years, and then the long term of the last 10 years, roughly.
Also, in our funding section towards the end of the document, we discuss some of the project as aspirational, and those are just the ones that would require a significant amount of funding. So those, the time frame is kind of just indefinite because those would be really expensive and require a lot of external funding sources.
So, Corey, not to belabor the point, but I think we get that this is a plan versus an implementation of all the various aspects of it. But no plan, no grants. Is that safe to say?
No plan that's deemed to be in conformance with the state guidelines.
Okay,
There could be a plan. It could be the 2000 plan,
sure.
but at the end of the day, your plan needs to be in conformance with the most current updated transportation goals and objectives and guidelines at the state level.
Right.
That will position you better to beat out competitors for grant funding.
Corey, this is Ryan Farnk. I'm also with Parametrics. I wanted to add as well that a valuable aspect of the TSP is also for conversations with developers, that having an updated TSP showing the preferred public improvements provides a tool with some teeth for the city to have conversations with developers about what sort of improvements developers will be required to engage in.
Mhm.
And on that note, that I've had conversations with prospective developers that have expressed concerns about having to do public infrastructure improvements. And because of the cost and difficulty of the logistics of developing here in Bandon, anything that we could do to reduce the cost of development, whether it's for housing or retail commercial, that's something that will help facilitate reuse of underperforming property or to facilitate the development of new housing. If we could find alternative funding to cover the infrastructure cost, especially relative to transportation, that's just an added benefit and advantage to entice development to occur. And we are all aware of how desperately in need we are of housing here in Bandon.
So another question I have is has to do with east-west traffic flow. So does the city currently, and specifically through the donut hole, does the city own any right of way at this point in time through the donut hole? Say connecting 101 to
Phase
Yes,
Beach
I-
Loop or something?
I'm not aware of any city-owned property within the donut hole because it's still part of the unincorporated county, right? So it's not even incorporated nor considered part of Bannon. It's just within the urban growth boundary. So based on that, I don't necessarily think that there's any property within the donut hole that's owned and controlled by the city for accommodating future roadway systems.
So would that mean that there would have to be property would have to be condemned, purchased?
If we were to annex the donut hole, and all likelihood, the county own and control areas would revert to the city. And then at that point, we would have ownership and control over those areas within the donut hole. There are portions of areas adjacent to the city that are county owned and controlled, and they lead to then city owned streets, which is very unique. But I would think that the area within the donut hole, those areas that have been identified for potential transportation or roadways, are wholly owned and controlled by the county.
Thank you.
Could also be developer donated as to meet the system plan or other things. They can develop it and then provide that roadway to the city.
Emily, since we're on the subject of collector roads, the estimate for the planning level cost for a collector from US 20th US 101 to Face Rock is a little over 7 million. When we say planning level cost, do we include construction or is that simply leading up to construction?
So that is a construction estimate, but I believe that when our engineers develop those, it does not include right-of-way acquisition.
Okay,
And there's also some environmental permitting and survey. So I believe that that's just the construction costs, but there would be other associated costs in there that are just too difficult to estimate without doing more intensive surveying.
sure. Thank you.
And Emily, the estimate of 57.3 million on the 2025 TSP, that's in $2025, right? Not $2030 or
Correct.
$2035.
Yeah. So adjust for inflation over time, but yeah, that's just for current dollars.
Okay. Thank you.
The other thing I consider with the TSP is the economics of the TSP. So you have local banded residents who have been paying into the tax system. If we were to approve a TSP that's deemed to be in conformance with the state guidelines, then again, we have a greater chance of accessing monies that we are duly owed as taxpayers. If we choose not to, then what we will do is divert nearly $26 million to be spent in other communities throughout the state of Oregon. And for me, my main concern and focus is to do what I can to keep revenue here for the benefit of the banded community. And this is one step towards that effort.
Did I read somewhere that currently Bandon has what, $250,000 a year to throw at these sorts of projects?
There was a statistic cited in the TSP, and I'll defer to Emily to expand on that.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but we did a funding memo, which I think you all have the appendices now. So there was a memo where we looked at basically historical revenue and expenditures from Bandon's budget, just to kind of see where funding's available, and also which sources of Bandon's budget are typically put towards transportation projects. But I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head what the number was there. But we use that to calculate the financially feasible project number amount, which is the $7 million. So calculating what Bandon would potentially have available each year and then multiplying that over a 20-year period.
Yeah, it was $280,000 a year for a total of 5.6 million in 2025 dollars over a 20-year lifespan.
Thank you.
Either
Thank you.
And the rest might have been that 25%. A lot of times in a TSP, we allow you to project, to keep it financially constrained because we don't know what the crystal ball holds.
Yeah,
We allow it usually to go to 125%.
yeah, it said as a result, financially feasible budget is 7 million. So, I think you'll agree with this, Tori, but I just want to state it for the record. Adopting this, so on page 138, there's some recommended funding gap recommendations. Local gas tax, transient occupancy tax, tax rates, leverage. Adopting this is in no way in support of any of those recommendations, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I just wanted that on the record.
Mhm.
I'd like to just correct one thing that I had said, answered earlier to Commissioner Frey. You had asked about alternative one.
Yes.
And well, if that alternative was selected, it probably does meet the transportation planning rule. I don't know that it meets the statewide planning goals that you would also have to make findings on,
Okay,
particularly goal 9, which is the economic development, just because of the impact to all the businesses that you'd have to take out.
okay, thank you. I have a question on alternative 3. So even with using that approach and doing the restriping, we would not apparently have enough space or room to put in candlesticks or something similar like that for the bike lane? I think that was stated. I find that, I don't know how much space is, well, I know how much space is required for a candlestick. I don't know from your end, from an engineering standpoint, why we wouldn't be able to support that.
So we've proposed, I think, a 2-foot buffer, which is typically they stripe those. And the reason that we a lot of times use striping versus the candlesticks,
Mhm.
they're usually little plastic pieces that are, kind of glued to essentially to the highway.
Right.
And people have a tendency to run over those and hit them, right? And so if you've ever been into some of those places that have them, they're all cut in half and torn down. And they're just a maintenance headache and take a lot of room, a lot of time for maintenance to come back and try to replace those.
Okay.
Meantime, it looks kind of tacky, and so that's
And-
a lot, just for really maintenance purposes.
Yeah, and just to add to that a little bit, oh, and by the way, Chris Hunter, Area Manager, ODOT, I think I said that before. Typically candlesticks or any other type of barrier that you do install, there is buffer that you have to provide on either side of that. So even candlesticks may require it to be a little wider than just 2 feet.
Than just 2 feet.
To accommodate, that space taken up by the candlestick.
Okay.
And so there's other engineering factors that do play into that.
All right. good,
Probably
thank you.
another 1 to 2 feet shy distance.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
And-
could comment on candlesticks as a avid road cyclist for a good 20 years. Those candlesticks were installed throughout Long Beach, and all the cyclists were up in arms because it's very difficult to have street sweepers gain access to that area.
Mhm.
So what you find is a lot of the debris ends up collecting within the bike lane,
Makes sense.
causing punctures and other issues. So despite their best intention, as a cyclist, it's not something that you would want along a bike lane.
Okay, thank you.
And just to provide a little additional clarity on the striping aspect of it. Like Mike mentioned, typically we'd like to try to, if we're gonna do a trial or a pilot ahead of a project, because when you come in and do paving, you got this clean slate. So whatever you attempt to do ahead of that, you can do a trial, but this paving project basically wipes it all out and then gives us an opportunity to put it back either the way it was or a new configuration or a configuration altered depending on public input, direction from city council or other things. There's no way ODOT's ever gonna come in here, and that's why we've agreed to IGA or an agreement with the city. We're not gonna come in and force this. And that's another key point that's been made about this planning document. It's a planning document, it's a guide. It doesn't force you to do these, but it gives you a tool to go after funding. It gives you a tool to go after and maybe go do these projects that you wouldn't have or be able to do without it, but it doesn't make you go do that. And as also mentioned, 5, 10 years, you might have additional development. You may have a lot of things that change. Some of these projects may not even be viable after 5 or 10 years. And you have to do a TSP update because now volumes are so much, there's no way we could do something like that. And so even that, it requires reanalysis to look at before actually moving forward with a project. And again, concurrence from the city. Even if you're gonna go after federal funding, I'm assuming city council has to approve the city to go do that and, apply for these grants. And so there's all kinds of mechanisms that keeps the city involved in all of that process.
Another
What's
factor,
your plan?
when you're submitting for grant applications, it bolsters your application when you're able to obtain letters of support from the likes of ODOT and other regional agencies. And again, the recommendation for alternative 3 is being presented at the recommendation of ODOT. It seems to be probably one of the more benign alternatives. We've talked about it being implemented on a trial basis, and that would only be subject to council authorization and approval to do so. After the 12-month period or the time frame that it was implemented, that would allow ODOT to conduct the necessary real-time assessment of the vehicle traffic patterns, identify the associated impacts, and then recommend alternatives to mitigate those impacts that would likely result in further refinement of that concept. Yet, even if it were to be implemented with the approval of the council, at that time, council will presented all this information And they could then either elect to implement the modifications and recommendations to address the impacts or to revert it back to its original configuration. So just to further clarify that of the alternatives that are presented that are deemed to be viable, the alternative 3 is probably the most benign. And again, it would only be implemented with city council approval at a future date and time.
And the process Tori's talking about is the exact process we went through with the city of Port Orford. We had a paving project coming. That ended up being about a 2-year pilot because our paving project got delayed, but due to some funding, but we did a restriping with concurrence from the city council. We went out there, we ground off the old stripes, put down new stripes, and kept that pilot. We had to refresh the striping some because again, it went a couple years. But then we met back with the community, city council and others. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Was there tweaks? So we had all those same conversations, but bottom line, they liked it. They seemed to be able to enjoy walking down the road. They saw that it did slow down traffic. Although a side benefit that they won't admit to is they weren't issuing as many tickets. So they didn't have that revenue, but it accomplished the goal that they wanted as far as slowing down traffic, providing more additional room for folks that were riding. But we did that in conjunction with the city. And then as we paved it, we paved through and then put it back to the striping that we agreed to.
That brings up a question. So if the council were to approve the pilot project and after a year or the end of the pilot project, if ODOT felt that it was successful, but the city council did not, then my understanding is the city council would be able to have the project removed and revert. Is that correct? And how long would that reversion take approximately? That's
Well, and that's why, not to interrupt, but that's why we would like to do it in conjunction with a project because otherwise there are costs. We could frankly do it anytime, but we'd have to have probably a little deeper conversation because there's more cost in removing it, striping it, and then removing it and striping it again. We're doing it twice. Where if we do it in conjunction with a project, really we're removing it and striping it once, and then the project's paying for the last of it. It's not coming out of our maintenance bucket. It's not coming out of city coffers or something else to put it back. But
Which is the repaving.
which is the repaving. So if we're repaving 101, which we assume in the next 10 years or so, we'll probably need to do a portion of that through here. But the idea is if council doesn't like it, we're not gonna force something. We don't want to be adversarial with our local partners. So we'll put it back to the striping that we all agree to. When we pave it, we'll include that in the plans of what that is. So that's the idea of doing it in conjunction with a paving project. It should happen fairly quickly then after that pilot's over, because we should be coordinating that pilot with the project and when that's gonna go to bid.
so
And so we will analyze it and we will seek public input on it as well. And we may suggest some modifications and we will present that recommendation and that information to the city council, but it'll be their decision to make. We will then take whatever that decision is and we'll put that into our design that goes out to bid.
Yeah, and just to be transparent, I mean, that could be 3 to 6 months later. It just depends on how you get that timing right with our project coming through to pave it and restripe it.
yeah,
Versus,
I won't speak for the city council, but you're probably aware there are a number of folks that maybe aren't happy with the concept of the pilot project. So I would think if there was some determinate time frame, if the pilot project was reversed, it may be more palatable to some people that may be opposed to it. If we just say, well, when we get to it, we'll get to it. It might be 6 months, it might be a year. Funding issues with ODOT, as we know, you folks are having a tough time right now.
Right.
If this was happening now, you might not even be in a position to move forward to even reverting the striping, much less repaving 101.
Which is why we would prefer to do as part of a project. So
because we know it's gonna get redone.
right, we have that kind of funding.
How far out are your projects? So we mentioned a 10-year time
Oh,
frame.
yeah, right now we're out 27, 30. There's nothing on the horizon for here, even 30 to 33, I don't see it on any list coming up as far as a paving project.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it can't pop up, but currently it's not on the
It's
radar
not.
anywhere.
Generally, we might know 6 or 7 months, but it does take a little bit of time for us to incorporate whatever decision that is into the design
Mhm.
process.
Sure, that makes
So that
sense.
we can get all those plans and specs and things out to bid.
We would,
Yeah.
we would identify all that in the agreement, which is the reason why Tori suggested that we have an agreement put together. And again, that agreement states that we'll put back what we agree with city council on, that we'll have to all be in agreement on that final product and
So
what
we're-
that looks like.
Yeah,
Great.
paving, so we have to stripe it.
We,
We're gonna stripe it
Right.
according to whatever
Thank you.
if,
Yeah.
if there's a desire or a push to do it outside of a paving project, to go try it sometime, we may have to have additional conversations about cost share or other things. That's what we've typically done with other communities, something like this. So that is feasible as well.
Thank you.
That's a question I had is on this plan, it says that project would be about 6.3 million. And potential to be funded by STIP, city responsible for an assumed 10% match. So,
That's if the city initiated the plan, the city would be on the hook for
Oh.
their match.
all right, so,
If,
but
if it's an ODOT
Okay.
project that we've identified in our STIP that we're gonna come pave this section of highway, we don't come
No
back and say the kid, all right, city, you have to put in money.
okay,
No.
that was my question. Thank you.
All right, are we done?
No, I have one more question. I'm sorry, Don. And this isn't on 101, so everybody will be happy probably. There was a comment on, there it is, the lane narrowing approach. Emily, you may be best for this. Under IDT.4, lane narrowing approach, US 101/OR 42S intersection. What's the purpose of narrowing that particular intersection? I think right now it's 3 lanes as you approach 101. Why, and a right turn lane, straight and left only. Why would you want to narrow that at a cost of $2 million?
Yeah, I believe when our engineers were looking at that intersection, that was a safety countermeasure project. And it wouldn't be removing any lanes, it would just be narrowing the width of the existing travel lanes. When lanes are really, really wider than they have to be, it often encourages higher speeds. And that
Okay.
was one of the intersections that had one of the higher crash instances in the city. So I think that one was to just narrow up the lanes to cause drivers to take that intersection a bit slower.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All for me, Don.
Good. Good. All right, now we go to a public hearing. So we'll close this section. It is 8:05. I now declare a public hearing open at 8:05 on 7/24/2025. This is an official public hearing about the Planning Commission of the City of Bandon for the 2025 City of Bandon Transportation Plan Update. Applicable criteria related to this action are listed in the staff report, available online through the city's website and as part of tonight's meeting agenda. Please address your comments to these criteria or the criteria you believe to apply to this decision. We've already had a staff report on this. You want to make more comments?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. This hearing is to be orderly and courteous. When it becomes your turn to testify, please state your name and address for the record. You will be given, this has 5 minutes. Okay? 5 minutes to share your comments. Please be mindful of your time. We will be watching. For those on your computer to provide public comment, click on the raise hand feature in the webinar controls. This will notify city staff that you have raised your hand. You would like to speak. City staff will mute your microphone when it is your turn to unmute your microphone when it is your turn to provide public comment. A prompt will appear to confirm that you would like to be unmuted. Once you accept the prompt, you have 5 minutes again to provide public comment. Once your public comment is ended, you will be muted again. Are there any commissioners who wish to ask questions to this person? We don't even have a person yet. All right. Any public comment? If the one's depressed, yes.
It's on now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
My name is Kim Consul. We have an address on Harrison Road, even though our lots are along where 20th Street would be. The county told us that 20th Street did not and would not exist. This was the only abandoned area property that we could afford. It was inaccessible when we bought it due to the gorse. We knew that it was in the donut hole, which was county. We did not know that it was in the urban growth boundary or that there were potential plans for a busy collector road along our lots. So my point in speaking here is to oppose construction of a new collector road along the 20th Street right-of-way, east of the Jackson Road right-of-way. Like many of the residents of the donut hole, we worked to eradicate the gorse. We personally paid to have Harrison Road extended from the 22nd Street right-of-way to where 20th doesn't exist. We also bought the conduit to extend the electrical underground for the same distance. This is what residents have done when they want to live in the donut hole. Eventually, the roads will be completed by residents and it won't cost the city anything. No developer needed. For those that don't know, the Donut Hole resident survey last year showed that the majority of residents do not want to be annexed into the city. The residents are low income and cannot afford to have improvements done that will result in fees or higher taxes. I have an additional concern. In the June 9th TSP draft that was discussed with the City Council regarding the 20th Street West connector, it states, will require additional right-of-way acquisition, may have private property impacts. What does this mean? Will eminent domain be used to seize property owners' private property? If you draw a straight line from Face Rock Drive to the gravel stub of 20th Street at 101, the line goes right through my property and through another neighbor's land. If you are not going to take private property, Face Rock Drive will either have to veer northeast to 20th Street right-of-way or southeast to the 21st Street right-of-way. There is a very well-built section of 21st Street that starts at 101 and goes farther east to west than any road in the donut hole. It's unmarked. The entrance is between the soap shop and Gann Excavating on 101. That is an option for the collector if there has to be one. The right-of-way for 21st Street on the west side has had the gorse removed, whereas the gorse on the 20th Street right-of-way could not be removed because it's a seasonal stream during the wet months. If you try walking the right-of-ways for both 20th and Franklin, you will see that there are bogs, seasonal ponds, and streams along both. This is not shown on the wetland maps. There's also a large year-round beaver pond past where the gravel ends on 20th Street coming west from 101. I haven't even mentioned all the mature trees on the rights of way and the wildlife that live within the donut hole. In conclusion, I'm asking, please, do the other TSP projects that everyone supports. Leave the donut hole east of Jackson right-of-way alone. And I do have aerials of what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Move over in front of the microphone.
My name's Tricia Clancy and I live at 87454 Edna Lane, which is part of the donut hole. I'm concerned about the proposed local street from Franklin, which currently ends at 16th, Franklin and 16th, and they want to extend it to Edna, which is 24th Street. And right now, between 16th and 24th, there's nothing, just raw land, wetlands, ponds, there's ditches and creeks. Currently, Edna is a 40-foot single lane gravel road. It's very narrow. At one end, it dead ends, and then the other end, it runs into 101 with a few businesses at the very end there's some large trucks and everything. Even now, there's only room for one lane on Edna Lane, and cars have to pull over and wait if another car's coming down. There are drainage ditches that run down both sides of Edna from runoff from 101 and from the wetlands and ponds and creeks on the north side of Edna. In the winter, Edna constantly floods as the ditches, sorry. As the ditches and creeks can't cope with all the runoff from the water, you have to drive through several inches of water when you drive on Edna Lane. Once the extended Franklin Road that they propose hits Edna, all the traffic that comes down the extended Franklin Road would have to make a sharp left turn onto Edna and go down the narrow one-lane road to 101. The extended Franklin Road then goes on to Carter, now being just a bike path and a pedestrian-only road. This would also have serious water issues, as there is a huge drainage ditch running along that access road between Edna and Carter. In conclusion, the proposal of a equal street running north-south, etc., by the extension of Franklin through raw land with wetlands and numerous creeks, ponds, and drainage ditches would be expensive and difficult. The bike path unusable in winter. Plus traffic having to make a sharp left turn onto Edna, which is a narrow one-lane road, to make it out to 101. So this would cause traffic chaos on Edna for all concerned, especially residents. So what would be the benefit? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay. Did the staff wish to make any comments? Or would the commissioners like to ask any questions?
I have a question. Is this the R4 and R6 they were discussing on page 137? And it says exact location through the donut hole will require refined planning studies and wetland delineations and may be affected by future development.
Yes, I believe that is the case. I'll ask Emily to confirm.
Yes, I believe that R4 and R6 are those that were mentioned. And a lot further refinement study would have to be conducted. And the alignments that are drawn on this map are very illustrative. We've not vetted where the wetland delineations are, could potentially be routed around private property and adjusted accordingly. So these are intended to be very, very high level suggestions, not exact alignments of where the roadways would necessarily go.
The only other thing I could add is that there's no intention or plans on the part of the city to annex any part of the donut hole at any time in the near future. As conveyed, that this is very diagrammatic and conceptual. It's
Yes.
a very general plan in the sense of what may potentially occur in the future. And in the 30 years of being a public servant, I have never witnessed nor seen a city condemn property through eminent domain, and I don't necessarily think that would occur here as well.
And I regularly walk Edna Lane, Harrison, and Jackson roads. And in the wintertime, it gets pretty sloppy back there. And the water is usually up to the road or over it in several places. The ditches are always running. There's no place for the water to go. And it's slow moving. And it is a narrow roadway. I don't have to move far over to miss the traffic, but it does happen. So the points made here are very descriptive of what it looks like.
Yeah, Tori, I'll ask you to reiterate what we've already discussed. I know a lot of folks in the donut hole are concerned about possible projects in the future there, but even if the TSP is recommended tonight and the city council approves it, any project still would need further approval from the city council, including public hearings before moving forward. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
So it's not like we're going to pass a recommendation and the city council, if they choose to approve it, it's not like all of a sudden the city can move forward without any notification, without any proper noticing, et cetera, to people, say, in the donut hole, if there was something going to impact them.
That is correct.
Correct, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, I'm gonna close this hearing. We've discussed this enough. We don't need to extend the hearing, right?
No. I agree.
Okay, good. So I will close the hearing at 8:20 and move on to our regularly scheduled program. So, commissioner comments? How to move forward with this?
Mhm. I make a motion to recommend approval of the City Abandoned Transportation System Plan, TSP, for city council consideration and approval.
I second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the TSB plan and move it along to city council. Or did you say we don't have to specify which alternate?
I think the alternate's included in the plan as presented, is that
That's correct. And
Right.
to be clear, it's alternative 3.
three?
All right, so we do have to specify alternative 3.
No.
Well,
No,
no,
we're
it's
just
already.
approving.
Yes.
But it's,
Okay, all right,
Recommendation for the plan.
all right, all right.
Do we need to vote on that?
Yes, we do. Voice vote?
Yes.
Vote, please.
Yes, please. Commissioner Orsi?
yes.
Vice Chair Jakowski?
Yes.
Chair Starbeck?
Yes.
Commissioner Norman?
Yes.
Commissioner Pressler?
Yes.
Commissioner Frey?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. We'll move it along to city council. We have no new or old business. Community Development Director comments. That would be you,
Yes, thank you.
or you're the interim.
The interim for 1 year.
Yes.
I am excited to announce that the city has retained a new community development director. His name's Jeffrey Mitchum, and Jeff is expected to start here August 4th. Jeff has an undergraduate degree from the University of Oregon. He had 5 years experience at the city of Portland. He's also worked at various cities in California. His most recent assignment was at the city of Shasta. He is here now, presently, I think moving into his home. And with that, we're very excited to have him on board. He's been being kept up to speed and up to date on issues. And we had him visit City Hall on Monday and attended a meeting. So we're very happy about the selection. We do miss Dana. But with that, we are moving forward, and I think we have a very good community development director to replace Dana. In addition, I know that the city's trolley was a very big, popular attraction here. And when I first came on board, I made a commitment to find somebody to retrofit it to accommodate ADA compliance. However, despite our best efforts, what we realized is that anybody who's in the field that would be able to make that modification they're not very interested in doing it because of the liability. And if they were to install a lift and for some reason there was an accident, the exposure was just too great for many of them who were surveyed and inquired with, that it's very difficult this time to find anybody that's willing to make any modifications to the trolley. That doesn't mean that that is totally off the table, but we have hit some hurdles and snags, and we'll continue to investigate the possibility of bringing that back into Bandon. If not, if there is available grant funding to support some type of trolley or transportation system, and that would all be contingent upon a TSP that's approved and acknowledged by the state. We'd be happy to also pursue opportunities to find grant funding for that. That's all I had to report. Thank you.
Okay,
And Tori, I'm going to hop off now, but just wanted to thank everyone for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
commissioner comments?
No.
I was just curious about what, I did ask June, I'll preface it with that. Curious about a future possibility of having like an inspection process for, buildings and after Pablo's Corners had to be condemned. Is that something I'm understanding that might be a possibility potentially?
Yeah, the situation with that particular business, I can't get into any
That's
specifics.
okay.
But with that, what we've come to realize is that in an effort to conduct the required inspection to determine whether or not a building is suitable for occupation, it requires the participation by a number of agencies, including the state fire marshal. And at the end of the day, state fire marshal spearheaded that inspection. It was also done in coordination with Coos County Building and Safety. The city initiated the red tag notice because of the logistics and difficulty. Where I've been from previously, the city contracted with Building and Safety through the local county. The county building official would then be empowered to make these kind of determinations and decisions on behalf of the city. We're scheduled to meet again to reconvene and address the issues and concerns regarding the responsibilities of the agencies involved, hopefully to streamline that should there be a need to do proactive enforcement in the future. A lot of the issues that we identified as violations were fire safety related and building and safety related. The municipal code regulations really pertain to the appearance and maintenance of the property. So as you can see, the other agencies have more significant teeth when it comes to condemning a building like that.
Is there something we could do as a
City.
planning commission or as a city to make that process more proactive from our level too?
It's a matter of the resources, and I understand that the county is strained when it comes to building safety resources. But I think by meeting with the agencies involved, we could probably devise some type of solution. I do think that there's a need to do more proactive code enforcement on our part when dealing with commercial retail properties. As a tourist dependent economy and community,
For sure.
you want to ensure that your commercial business attractions are maintained in a very aesthetic and pleasing manner.
Yes.
So I think that there is interest in moving forward with a proactive code enforcement effort for commercial retail businesses and be more of a responsive code enforcement when it comes to residential related land uses.
Sure.
Right. The problem is that we have one code enforcement officer who works part-time.
Yeah.
So again, when we talked about the city and the lack of discretionary funding, if we're able to generate funding that would offset the need to expend general fund monies for infrastructure, transportation improvements, that would free up money to do things like this.
Okay.
Right. So everything that we do here is based on economics.
Yes.
And that's really been my focus as of late, and to just better position Bandon for the future. These are all things that come into play.
And I'm not faulting you because actually I asked question maybe in 2018 when I
Sure.
was first on the committee and then I didn't bring it up again. So it's not that I think it's your fault. It's just,
No, that's fine.
it's just that I hadn't given it any thought until I had been made aware of that
Right.
again.
No, that's a very valid point. And fortunately, I had a good 15, 20 years of overseeing code enforcement. So I do have that
Sure.
in the portfolio of expertise. Is there, I think, interest and support to expand that? Yes. But I also think in doing so, I don't necessarily want state agencies or county agencies to be let off the hook for their responsibilities. And that kind of seems
That makes sense.
like what occurred in this instance,
That makes sense.
right? So if we could hold them accountable and responsible for doing their duties,
Sure.
that just frees up our ability to do things like proactive code enforcement in commercial areas,
Sure.
and then more of an effective, responsive code enforcement approach to residential properties.
Well, the good thing is at least it's being addressed now for that particular building.
Yes.
So. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You have brought up revenue sources, and I understand that the state has passed some legislation that affects abandoned utilities.
That's correct. There's been some new legislation, but I'm not at the liberty of discussing that at this point. I know that there will be some discussions moving forward. The law doesn't become effective until January 1, 2026. But with that, I think conversations with the council to obtain policy direction on how to proceed are essential. And so I wouldn't want to disclose anything or suggest anything otherwise without first consulting the council on that issue.
All right, I just wanted, just bringing it up to say that there is maybe a ray of hope on the horizon.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Gordon. Yeah, a small one.
I don't have any.
Jan? Mr. Fay?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank
You always do.
I always have a few things. Thank you, band and team, for being here tonight. And thank you, Kim and ODOT representatives and everyone else that participated tonight. Always wish there were more people here on Zoom, but we'll work on that. Thank you to the port for the Sea Serpent. I think it's a pretty cool thing that was established there in that new little green area. So that.
We did take care of the brackets that are holding it up.
Oh, okay. And a couple of things, and June, if you could put this on the written record, please. I'd like to investigate the city council having the planning commission look into a change in policy to require sidewalks for new single-family dwellings. That kind of skirts the TSP draft. I don't think there was anything specifically in that, but they talk about sidewalks and walking, but yet the policy doesn't require new sidewalks for new homes. So I think it would be a good thing to look into this year. And the other thing is, think I'd like the city council to consider having the planning commission, if it's our area, analyze current SDCs. I think the prior city manager made an attempt at that, but it may not have been completely successful. So I think, speaking of revenue, there's always a possibility of some additional revenue from folks that are moving into the community and building new homes, especially single-family dwellings.
The only thing I can add to that is that based on my research, the impetus for preparing the TSP update was exactly that, to look at potentially increasing SDCs related to transportation in the future.
Okay.
So with the recommendation to adopt the TSP this evening that you referred to the city council, that's wholly in line with what you're suggesting here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. It is 8:37. We are adjourned.
Or 30.
8:32.
Okay, whatever.
Not to be particular. Oh, a system development. So when you build a new house, there's a formula that indicates what you need to pay to hook up to sewer and